Welcome to Young at Harp, episode number 198. What if it's not working? I am Kathleen Wiley, a Jungian Psychoanalyst in North Carolina. I am here with Deborah Henson-Conant, a composer, a performer, a mentor, educator, and we both play the harp, and that's why we call this Young at Harp. And we come together almost every week to have a conversation where we explore a question. And hopefully, if you're joining us live, you're on a platform where you can join in the dialogue by typing in your chats and comments, and that will expand our exploration of the question, and we'll see what answers we come up with. And you can find us on all your favorite podcast platforms, as well as going to YouTube and Googling for Jung, Jung, at Harp, HARP. And you will find us there. So this morning, DHC and I were talking about things in our life, or we were alluding to things in our life, some of which are working, some of which aren't working, some of which are working, but not necessarily to the capacity we want them to work or desired. So we decided we wanted to explore and hear from you, as well as from each other, about what do we do if it's not working. And the first thought I want to offer is, when it's not working, if I can remember to stop and breathe deeply. Because when I stop and breathe deeply, what I usually find is I have just tightened up and I'm trying to push my way through, which only creates a compensatory resistance coming back at me. So that's the first thing I'm going to put out there in the mix between us, is that if it's not working, the sooner I can slow down, stop, and breathe deeply, then perhaps something opens up.
Well, I'm thinking two things. Like as you were speaking, I was like, we need a theme song. We need a theme song. and my first idea for the theme song was, what if it's just not working? What if it just don't work? What if you do it and you just feel like a jerk? Well, then I don't have an answer. But as I was writing the caption, I was like, what if it's just not working? The answer to this question will surprise. And it was like a commercial. And then I was like, the answer to this question will surprise me. Mm-hmm. I hope that by the end of this session, the answer will surprise me. One of the things, so I have two sides of my family. I'm Jewish and I'm Swedish. And I spent a lot of time with my Jewish family, and with both families, but I never really understood what it meant to be from Swedish stock. And then I heard on, some article or something, book on tape or something at one point, and I heard somebody telling something about it was just like a Swedish joke, and like, how does a Swede get around a wall? And they just like bang their head against it over and over and over again. And at that moment, I was like, oh my God, I really am Swedish. So yeah, when something isn't working, it also reminds me when I was a little kid. I don't know why they did this in shoe stores, but they had this thing that they called the Chinese torture. Again, shoe store, weird title. Maybe it was in Chinatown. I don't know. Anyway, and that was one of those things where you stuck your fingers in both sides, and if you pulled out, the tighter you pulled, the less you were able to get out. Mm-hmm. And I knew that this was a metaphor for life, not when I was 3, but pretty soon I knew it was a metaphor for life. Yeah. But I don't know what the metaphor is for getting out of it. I mean, I hear what you said about stop and look. I'm interested in what are all the thoughts that go through my head. And because I think those thoughts, that swirl of thoughts, if I think about that little toy, I think that it was woven together of something very simple, fabric or bamboo or something like that. But it was how it was woven together and how it engaged with my fingers and how my energy pulled it that got me caught in it. And so I hear what you're saying, that stop is the first thing and breathe, but like, where's the fun in that?
For me, the fun is that my energy starts to settle and I feel a sense of peace, and then some clarity about how to emerge comes. But it isn't fun in the sense of excitement and energy continuing to go outward.
Mm.
It is it's a shift. So so I guess we have to define fun, right? What's fun? What is fun?
Well, I was also thinking, if there's an underlying compulsion to hide, and I think I do have an underlying compulsion to hide, and I actually experienced this as a child. Whenever I would hear somebody coming into a room, I'd just have a compulsion to hide, but for fun. It seemed fun, like, oh, where can I hide? But I see that it was maybe something else. I don't know. Anyway, I just forgot what I was saying. So
Yeah.
I,
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm a Virgo with 3 planets in Virgo. We're the workhorse of the zodiac, so fun probably. I'm not the best one to talk to about.
well, I want to talk about something that may or may not be relevant. So I got hacked in Instagram 11 weeks ago. And it was one of those things where, I was out for a run. I came home and I saw this thing that said, did you just change your email address to mwakapalabala at blah, blah, something just like some odd thing. And I was like, no. But by the time I was able to, then the next email was, did you just change your password? And by the time I was trying to I couldn't get in. And I couldn't get in, and none of the things that were going to let me get in were going to let me get in. And so I went to tech support, and they, couldn't help. And so I joined Meta Verified, and they sent me, they couldn't help, wouldn't help, sent me to the manager who just kept sending me AI messages. And then someone said, well, maybe if you know someone at Meta. And it turns out someone I knew worked at Meta, and they were like, yes, we have a link to help you get in. But oh no, they stopped using that link. And nothing was working. And finally I was like, fine, I'm going to let go of this. We'll start a new Instagram account, and, okay, that's what we're going to do. So my team got together and we were going to start the new Instagram account. We decided on the name and we put it all together. And then I was trying to follow the directions of like what to do. And as I was doing it, one of my team members was like, hey, wait a second. We have the email address of the person who hacked. And I was like, yeah, but if we try to get in with that, it'll just send them the details. And she was like, well, let me just try. And like within 15 minutes, we were in. And we kind of knew what to do because we'd seen what the hackers did. And somehow it happened. So here was this intractable problem. And we actually got excited about having a new Instagram account because we pulled out all our favorite stuff from the old Instagram account. And we were going to start the new Instagram account with just all our favorites, like the top hits, my Instagram hits. And, but it was this weird thing in which I completely gave up and said, you know what? This isn't going to work. Let's just do this other thing. And in the space of doing this other thing, something opened up, but something more opened up, because during the time that I had no access to my Instagram account, I shifted from like being, oh God, I have to post on Instagram. Like, oh, like poor me, like, how come I have to do that? And I have to show up. I realized, wait a minute, this is an opportunity to play with life. Up until then, I saw Instagram as a requirement to try to look good and be meaningful and all of that. And as a place that I could humiliate myself and destroy my career and, all of that was what it was. As a place where I had to try to live up to other people. And when I lost access to it, I realized, wait a minute, this is just a place where I can experiment with being visible. Now I'm still scared of being visible. Here I'm with you, no problem. I'm having a conversation with you. To me, it is absolute, complete, 100 million% valuable because I'm having a conversation with you. Now, can I see every part of my life that way? Can I see the value or find the value in every single thing that I decide to do, including the things that aren't working?
Well, and part of my thought is that two things that you gave up pushing against and railing against the Instagram account being hacked, and you set up a new Instagram account. So you got back in the flow. You got back in the flow of movement towards what you wanted, which paradoxically then seemed to be accompanied by the recovery of the other account, by this kind of realization.
Right.
So,
and we don't even know why it happened. I mean, it could have happened for some, who knows why.
yeah. So there's something about the letting go of resisting and pushing and railing against and just getting back in the flow of what you want, which is an Instagram account to be able to share yourself. I mean, the whole idea of what you call the Chinese torture, the harder you pull, it is a reminder of that principle of compensation, which is one of the, I mean, Jung says that it's a psychological principle, but it's also an alchemical kind of spiritual principle that, as above, so below, as within, so without. The compensation, there's always conscious and unconscious always compensating each other, which means they're working to create a whole, that anytime we get one-sided is the problem. And because the one-sidedness over here, the more extreme it is, the more extreme response on the other side is going to be constellated. Compensation. The seesaw phenomena. The lower you are over here, the higher this person goes.
Right.
So in some ways, if we find ourselves in something's not working, my experience is usually there is some out of balance, one-sidedness going on, where the seesaw of my life, so to speak, my ability to move in a rhythmic flow that works, that allows me to move forward with all of who I am and all of my needs, gets whacked, and so up here, there's a lot that's left out.
Well, I'm also thinking, someone was talking to me about different addictions and talking about how certain addictions, like food addictions and certain addictions, they're addiction of relationship, because you can't just stop eating. And I was just thinking, as you were talking, I was thinking, what if Instagram was a boyfriend and it found out that what I was saying about it? Like, it found out how I felt about it and was like, well, fine. If you don't like it, I'm just going away. Like, one reason I'm thinking about that is when I said, it's fun to be here with you. And I thought, well, I think I'm making other things in the world. I get that Instagram is not a person, but if I can have a relationship with AI, as I do sometimes, I could have a relationship with it, meaning I could not hate it. Why would I be doing something if I were resenting it?
I think that's a great question, because why is something not working? Sometimes it's because of the negative feelings that we have in its presence or towards it, that somehow, again, there is this energetic effect that it seems to happen. So to begin to value the Instagram account, for instance, to begin to value, I find that when things aren't working for me, it often is because I do feel I feel like I'm being put upon by it. A little bit. That's what you're talking about, your former attitude about social media reminds me of. It's like it's one more demand that I have to meet, and it feels like something coming from the outside that's pressure, versus that it's something I'm moving towards from the inside because I value it somehow. I have a relationship where I see my worth in relationship to it, and its worth in relationship to me.
As you're saying this, I'm thinking two things. I'm thinking, I'm always telling members of the academy or my students, I'm always saying, if you're struggling with something, and usually when you're comparing and despairing or something, find something to love in yourself or in it. Just find something to love, because it opens up the space. But also, as you were talking, I was thinking, I had this cat, the great Pucarini, who was just, he was crazy, and he was always trying to escape. And I mean, I let him outside, but not at 4 a.m. But he would try to go out and be out all night. And he started leaking all over the house, and that I couldn't have friends over because the house stunk, and then I had to give him shots. And I mean, he was really a problem cat. But I adored him. I just adored him. And every, giving him shots, I mean, a huge pill, this whole pill organization was extremely complex. But I did all of that without any sense of resentment at all, which really surprised me. And so, and I wonder if it's as much as like that cat and I he looked at me, and there was this connection. And I wonder if it's like, I'm thinking, Instagram doesn't like me. Why should I like it? It doesn't like me.
Yeah,
I stumped her.
Now, I was thinking so many things, and my neighbor's got a leaf blower going. That's kind of like, I have this drone noise in the background. I mean, it's interesting how we personify inanimate objects. That was one thing I was thinking. So It's all about projection.
Which I love.
It doesn't, yeah.
Okay. Which I love doing. I mean, it feels more fun to be in a world in which things are alive and with you.
Yeah, it's just part of what we psychically do. And it's just worth noting that because it's an inanimate object, whatever feeling we are assigning to it is a projection of a feeling we have towards it. Because it isn't feeling. It's the feeling we put on it. It's the feeling that the projection screen in us shines out there for us to encounter. So our projection about it actually is an opportunity for us to engage with that feeling in us, about us, or about whatever it is, the endeavor.
Please say more. Right. So as you're speaking, I'm just thinking of all the things I said about Instagram.
Right.
And thinking, okay, if that's a projection of what's going on in my universe, well, no wonder they're not working, and no wonder I'm uncomfortable.
Right, that's right. Because it's all a projection of some feeling state in you that you're not consciously owning or relating to. So then you project it outwards, and you're trying to work through it vis-a-vis the outer object, i.e. in this case Instagram, and it never works. That actually is part of what keeps us stuck. That is part of what contributes to things not working. When I can step back and realize that Instagram or Facebook or this, program I'm using or whatever, it's just a program that has its own operating rules. And the bottom line is I just have to learn the system that's been set up. It has nothing against me. It's nothing about me.
As you're speaking, I went back in time and I was thinking, what if the people who gave us that little toy, whatever it is called, that little toy, what if the whole point was that they were like that? So what if someone at the top of that company was like, you know what? Someday these children are going to grow up. Their feet are going to hurt. Their feet are going to start changing shape. Their lives, are not really going to be working. But if they had this experience of this little toy in this shoe store, maybe it would help them to understand that life can be different. And maybe, I don't know, whatever. But I just had this funny thought about the kindness that could be that I could be populating the world with.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is, I think, when something isn't working, it also helps me to go back to what is my purpose for doing it. when I am active on my Instagram account, which is Inner Divine Spirit, I often do little short, 60-second reels about one way to connect to the inner divine spirit today is, and then I offer a suggestion. And recently at the fall meeting of the professional society that I belong to as a Jungian psychoanalyst, one of my very inquisitive, intellectually oriented colleagues said to me, said, "Now, what is the purpose of those posts that you make?" And and I thought, what a great question. And it really prompted me. I actually, I gave him an answer, which, but no one had asked me the question actually in a while. I mean, I had probably early on thought about it. And so then I came home and I thought, okay, so what is my purpose? And so I made myself a little note card that I keep now with my stack of suggestions for reels that I'll make when I feel inspired to do it, or I'm not resisting doing it or whatever. But my relevance to our question with that is, I think for me, if I remember my purpose, that often then opens the door for the way forward. So if something isn't working, it's usually because I have gotten out of touch with my purpose, my own heart's desire for why I'm doing it. So if I remember, I do these Instagram posts because I want to make a positive difference in the world, and I want to point people inward to the source of their own life that can sustain, renew, energize them. Then it's like, okay, yeah, I'm happy to make a reel for that purpose. But if I get caught in, I should be doing this to, build a following, blah, blah, platform, blah, 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 blah. And you can see my affective response in saying it. I'm not going to do it. So I think there is something about, if something's not working, we need to stop and reflect on, what is it to me? What is the purpose for me? Where is my heart's desire in relationship to it?
Many things passed through my head as you were saying this. And one was the difference between engaging and trying to prove myself. And I was thinking about, because as you were saying, I try to give these tips, and I was thinking, I just go on and try to prove I'm okay, which is not necessarily true. But I mean, but that is part of my, my lifelong, like, am I good enough? And how do I prove myself? But I was thinking, as you were talking, I was thinking about high school, and I was also thinking about people I'm teaching improv to. And so I'll try to have both of those together. And in high school, there was this whole striation. There were the popular people and the whatever. But there was definitely space for everybody. And while whatever the popularity thing was not something I was sort of cognizant of, there was so much more. There was things I learned from teachers. There was lifelong friends that I, still am connected to. There were things I learned about suicide, teen suicide. There were things I learned. There was so much that happened in that space that had nothing to do with this upper echelon of popularity that was always sort of there. And I could just sort of look at it and see it. And now I'm thinking about, as I teach people, so I created this fake book, meaning I created a book of holiday tunes that have just the melody and the chords, because this is how I learned. Because that kind of book is what gave me freedom from a life that was standing in front of me of piano lessons and things that I was going to hate, and taught me how to connect directly to the parts of music that I found beautiful, which is the melody and the harmony, and gave me a way to engage with it directly. And as I'm teaching people, I'm noticing that some of them are immediately getting like, oh, wow, if I learn this system, I can apply it to any tune, certainly in any fake book, and certainly any tune in this fake book. And it gives me the freedom to be able to be expressive, even if I can barely play at this point. It gives me this, instead of having to painstakingly put together this thing that makes me good enough to be able to show up, it gives me, I can play it. I can play that tune. I can do it. But I can see what that there's a resistance, and I can observe that resistance in myself as well. There's something that gets in my way of being. As a child, everything was something to engage with.
Mm.
As an adult, it can start to be like something I have to prove myself with.
Mm.
And there's something that happens in there. And I think for me, that is where when it's not working takes over. And everything else disappears. The whole possibility for engagement. And as I'm saying this out loud, I'm realizing, one of the things all my life is that I've engaged incorrectly. I just don't know how things work. It's what's ended up for me being an innovator. I'm called an innovator, but only because I had no idea how things were supposed to work. So I would do them backwards or upside down, or I would say, even when I came to the harp, I really didn't know anything about harps. So I was like, oh, well, this is what you do on a guitar. This is what you do on a piano. So let's it's an instrument. Let's just do it on that. So what am I saying here is that I'm seeing this big rift between engagement and trying to prove myself. When I'm in engagement with something for the fun of it, exploring it, then I'm in joy. When I'm feeling like I have to somehow live up to that thing and prove it, because if I'm engaging with it, there is no such thing as it not working.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's a different paradigm, isn't it? Engagement for the experience of the relationship is a very different paradigm and state of consciousness than I have to prove I'm worthy. I have to prove I'm good enough. So that awareness of the paradigm we're operating in makes all the difference, and the paradigm we're in makes a big difference. It's interesting what you're saying, because if we're thinking again about what do I do when something's not working, sometimes what we have to do, and Jung says is, if we have to transcend it, we have to get up above that state of consciousness in order to be able to come back into a new state of consciousness where things work. Because it may very well be in this paradigm we need to transcend, things aren't going to ever work.
Right.
Because the paradigm is flawed.
Right. That's right. And so for example, if you go into playing with a lead sheet with the idea, into the skill of playing with a lead sheet, with the idea that you are going to make the perfect, you're going to sound like Mozart, it is never going to work. Because the way learning to play from a lead sheet, because it's a skill, it's going to work. And I don't know how to describe this. I saw a painter just showed me something the other day, and I wish I could show it to people, because she was showing me the layers. She showed me the first layer that she did, which was this sort of rough layer she was doing a dog, rough layer, kind of a mushy layer of the dog. Next version, where she put in a little bit more details, it had, it was more detailed. And then the third one, the one that she was going to, someone had commissioned it, all the details were in. And I saw it and I was like, that's what it's like to learn to play from a lead sheet. It is a completely different thing when you have a piece of sheet music. All the lines are in it from the beginning, and you try to just put them together. It's if you tried to paint something starting from the bottom and painting it up to the top. But that's not apparently how painters do it. There are layers of complexity, and those layers will inform each other. And I think that part of what I'm experiencing, as we're talking, I'm thinking about, when I think things aren't working, it's because I'm trying to jump in at a high complex level. And I think that so many of the people out there right now are like, learn how to be an Instagram amazing person. And, it's all about the hitting it big, instead of, hey, look how you can have fun with this. Yeah. And I'm just as guilty of that. And part of having fun means I guess I'm hearing myself about to say, redefine what it means for it to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think this is Tovala saying, great analogy of a painting. It's layered. Right. And right. Thank you, Tovala. And if you look at it, well, I would probably like it, but if you looked at this woman's dog in the first version, you'd be like, "God, that's kind of like nothing there. I mean, like, it's a bunch of blotches." And then it took more and more shape, but you began to see how that lower layer of engagement that she had with it was what led to it having this sense of depth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, can I add that to my life? And how would I add that to my life?
Mm-hmm. You know, I was thinking about how, for me, that blotchy layer is like when I start a song by just doing the left-hand chords.
Mhm.
That would be the harmonic progression.
Mhm.
That kind of begins to create that, and then adding in melody and accompaniment. Those layers. I think for us in our own lives, in the larger sense of the word, the arenas, it really has to do with starting with where we are and what it is that does matter to us. I mean, I go back to my colleagues' questions, like, what is the purpose? What is, and the purpose, if that word doesn't resonate for you, it's like, where's my passion? It's like, what is the passion that I'm going to share? I want to share and create and do regardless of what anyone else thinks about it. Because that's where the energy is. It's like, this is the fire in me that I want to stoke, and I'm stoking this fire because it's fun, it's satisfying, it's fulfilling, it's enlivening for me. And whether it means anything to anybody else or not, it doesn't matter if it's stoking my fire. But that's a different purpose than if my purpose is I've got to create this and have this outcome of it, because if I have this outcome, then I'm going to get X, Y, and Z. And it's not to say that latter is bad. It's just a very different energy system. It's a very different paradigm.
Well, it's so interesting because when I think about, like, what am I passionate about, and I feel like if I share that, I've been told, well, it takes people off message or something like that. I mean, like, what do I think about? Like, what am I listening to? I'm listening to a book about, great mental models. What am I reading, looking up on Instagram? I'm looking up, like, why, snakes, when they shed their skin. I mean, I'm fascinated with metamorphosis of all
Mm-hmm.
kinds, the transformation of all kinds. And, with snakes shed their skin, the skin is grown over their eyes as well. And then they can see better after that. Or when I look at the drawings that I draw, that I just find really charming and I have fun drawing them, and I'm afraid to share them. Or if I think about, I mean, I did just share the other day, quite accidentally, I sing songs for my friends. They make up these poems and then I make them into spontaneous songs. And some of them are prayers, some of them are funny songs, whatever, birthday songs, whatever it is they want. And it's almost like a secret thing. And yet it's part of my life. And I feel like there's all these secret things that I don't share that are often the things I'm passionate about.
Well, yeah, we're going to have to wind down in the next 5 minutes. I mean, part of what I want to say is the people who say, if you share what you're thinking about, that's off message. Well, maybe not. I mean, maybe it's about sharing what you're thinking about and how it connects to what the message is. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. And, I think that in terms of what works, often when things aren't working, it's because it's not real. I mean, people resonate with what's real. And yeah, there are people for a while can resonate with what's fake. I know last week we were talking about fake. How do you know fake or not? But what's real has an energy that resonates with other people. And so I think then the other thing we have to get clear about is, in my life, I want to attract people to be in my embodiment circle, to be in Allison's, to be friends, to be in my personal world, who are real. I want people around me who are grounded and want to be more of who they are, not who are out dissociating, trying to be like this one or that one or creep. I don't want that in my life because it's built, that doesn't hold ultimately. So I think the other thing is for us to get clear about what do we believe about what ultimately works. And my belief system about what ultimately works, whether it's at my harp, it's in my practice as a psychoanalyst, it's in my personal relationships, is when I'm real, when I show up grounded in who I am, in touch with who I am, and I move into that area of my life connected to the self. Otherwise, I end up just trying to be some role or some image that ultimately is hollow.
So as you're speaking, and I'm thinking this is called Jung at harp.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking that what you're saying here is, or what I'm getting, what I walk away from this is, if something's not working, I'm not making the connection. I'm fighting with it, or I'm not making the connection to me. I'm not engaging with it as me. And I'm thinking, taking the idea Jung at harp, why do we call this that? And so taking something to my harp, understanding why it is that I am at the harp in the first place. And I am at the harp in the first place because it is a medium that allows me to immediately embody and express.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can go in sadness, I can go in joy, I can go in connection with other people. And then to ask you, what is it in your connection to being a Jungian psychoanalyst? What would that connection say as sort of our final parting thing?
Yeah, I think it would say what I just said, which is you to come as the self you are, not with all of these fake roles, trying to be like this or trying to be that, but coming with your own essence, with the fullness of who you are, which I think the point of entry can be your felt sense, what it is. It's like, why am I at the harp at this moment? So at this moment, I'm at the harp to facilitate my deepening connection to the sense of source. At this moment, I'm at my harp because I want to play some lively background music for my friends. That I start with where I am, truly,
Right.
legitimately embodied.
And as you're saying that, I'm thinking, I asked my students recently, I said, I want you to make an inventory of everything you can do on the harp and then start applying it.
Yes.
And I think that where people get lost and where I get lost because I think it's not working, I can see it in music that people come and they think they have to fit in this box. And I'm starting to teach really practically, what are the principles? If you have something like this, you can move one part up, and if you can move it up, you can move it up more, and you can move it, if you can move one part, you can move the other part. That there are these principles that allow us to get to allow things to start working, start moving, and to start taking action. And so what I'm getting is, okay, Deborah, when things are not working, when you think they aren't, stop. Look at what you can do. And now let's start engaging with those things and start moving them around and see if I can reconnect that to what's important to me.
Yeah, and good, know your own operating principles. I mean,
Right.
This again is part of what Jung says. Every individual psyche needs its own manual. Know
Right.
how you operate. Know what matters. Know what motivates you. Know what juices you.
Right.
And move from that place instead of trying to move and get juiced by what someone else tells you should juice you.
Yeah, and as you're saying that, I'm realizing that in all my teaching and in all my work, it's adaptability, accessibility, and self-expression.
Yeah.
So I can keep looking for those to, okay, wow.
All right.
Well, thank you. Thank you, psychoanalyst Kathleen. And thank you, Tovala, and thank you for everybody else who is here listening and sharing, or those that share afterwards. And we really love hearing your comments. And I don't know if we'll be here for the next couple of weeks, but if Kathleen isn't, I will try to be here. And we will try to get better at sort of letting you know when we are and when we aren't. And you can go back and watch all the old episodes now on Spotify and every place else you watch podcasts. Kathleen, thank you.
Yeah.
And I'll look forward to seeing you either next week or the next time I